The next item of business is the financial reports from the Council on Finance and Administration, which starts on page 56 of the pre-conference report. So I'm going to give you a second to get to that, page 56 on your pre-conference report. The chair recognizes our CFA chair, Reverend Weldon Bares.
Good afternoon to everybody. I'm Weldon Bares, white, male, used to be young adult representative, and raging Cajun. Not just Cajun, I'm a raging Cajun. So good afternoon, Bishop Williamson, and to the whole annual conference. This brief little word as I begin, as most of you know, our conference treasurer, Sandy O'Brien, is retiring in July. She's been with our conference for 11 years, and Sandy has been just awesome. I'm so thankful today, as I know you are, for Sandy and for all of her hard work for our annual conference, and we are really going to miss her. So Sandy, thank you very much, and God bless you. Okay, are y'all comfortable? Everyone's relaxed? Okay, as chairperson of the Council on Finance and Administration, I have 3 reports to present to us today. These reports have been carefully prepared, and they're found beginning on page 56. They are very detailed reports, and I just think it's really helpful to actually read through these reports. It helps answer a lot of our questions. I also want to point out that any questions can be asked by sending an email to Sandy. The email address is found on page 56 of the report. I want to begin today by saying that our report for today from CFA is really good news. And I just believe that we should celebrate our financial blessings and the situation that we are in. Now, here's the good news. Our annual conference is in a great financial position to go forward and to keep on doing the good work of the church. So right now, our focus is on CFA Reports 1 and 2. They can both be found on the pre-conference journal on page 56 through page 140. First of all, CFA Report number 1 on page 56. This section outlines the ongoing CFA policies and procedures on recurring matters. And it's put right there at that spot to remind us of various finance policies and procedures that all of our clergy and churches should be aware of in carrying out the financial transactions of their church or agency. On page 59, there's an explanation of general unrestricted or undesignated reserves and a detailed explanation of how those reserves are handled. It also shows a calculation of excess overage of general reserves. I'll say it again, it's all very detailed, and I have to admit it doesn't make for very exciting reading, but it's right there in front of us, and I think it's pretty important. Now, last year, CFA and our annual conference voted to reduce our apportionments for local churches by 20 to 25% for 2024. But I want you to stay tuned because even more good news is coming in a few minutes. Now, going forward, CFA Report 2 begins on page 60. This part of the report has the financial information and the reports of the various financial activities of our annual conference. Like, for example, on pages 61 through 90, these pages show the internally prepared financial statements along with very detailed reports of the mission and ministry work. Last year, the conference collected $2,606,466 of apportionments. That's a 90.9 collection rate. Now, keep in mind that CFA and our annual conference reduced apportionments last year by 20% plus a 5% bonus by designating the excess overage of general unrestricted reserves in the amount of $914,821. In addition to that, the conference also used designated reserves from collections of apportionments paid by churches that disaffiliated in the amount of $847,027. Now, all of that together helped our annual conference to subsidize the actual apportionments assessed to our churches and to fund the overall 2024 apportionment expenditure budget of $4,542,009. I also want to point out that other ministry areas made use of their designated reserves of $2,084,000 to continue their ongoing work in mission and ministry. I'm now going to page 91. As you can see, the annual audit report is there. It has a clean opinion, no management comments, so that obviously is really good news. And then to page 121, for several pages, there is a list of unpaid apportionments for the year ending December 31, 2024, once again showing a collection rate of 90.9%. Some other items of interest in Report 2. Page 125 has a list of the special Sunday offerings for our churches. And also keep in mind that our conference's internal quarterly financial statements are published on the conference website, and the link for that can be found on page 127, line 13. Again, I want to encourage all of us to go over all the financial information about the various ministry works performed in 2024 and described in Report 2, items 2 through 13. So, Bishop Williamson, that's the end of Reports 1 and 2. Our conference treasurer, Sandy, along with Van, are here and ready to answer any questions. If the questions are easy, they can come to me. If they're not, they go to Sandy or Van.
Okay. Thank you. What we're going to do is we're going to take Report 1. Are there any questions on Report number 1? Okay. So I take it all have looked at Report number 1 and heard the explanation. And so are you ready for the question? Will you adopt Report number 1 of the CFA report? If so, prepare your cards. If you support it, raise your green cards. Okay, and it needs a majority vote. Okay, put your hands down. If you do not support the adoption of Report number 1, please raise your red card. Okay. It carries. We have adopted Report number 1 in the affirmative. Thank you. 1 and 2, you want to do them at the same time? I just said. Oh, no, okay, I'm sorry. All right, we're ready for Report number 2? All right, there are no questions on Report number 2. Are there any questions? All right, if you are ready for the question, please prepare by your green cards to affirm the report. Your green cards, we need a majority vote. Okay, thank you. If you oppose, please raise your red card. All right, Report number 2 has been adopted. Thank you.
Okay. So, Bishop Williamson, I would ask now that we keep on going to CFA Report number 3, okay, which is going to be presented today but voted on during the business session on Friday morning. I think they should give us enough time to read through it and absorb some very detailed information.
Weldon,
yes?
Yeah, and so before you begin, this is a presentation only of Report number 3, and there will be opportunities for more questions later, but we're giving folks time to look at Report number 3, and that part is part of the budget, correct? And so we just want to remind you that this is a presentation only. Okay, thank you.
CFA Report number 3 is found on page 127. The great news of our annual conference today is that our conference is in a really good position financially to carry on the mission and the ministry of the church and to actually reduce our local church apportionments. I want you to know it was kind of like the wave. It started here and it went over there. But I want you to know that not many annual conferences can say that with absolutely certainty, but we can. Our theme for this year's annual conference is joy, and this report has a lot of joy in it. Our annual conference is so fortunate to have good and strong financial resources, and that puts us in a good position to keep on doing the ministry and the mission of the church. Now, CFA has been working on all of this in 3 ways: to build and connect and equip. All 3 of these are very important: to build and connect and equip. The work began with connect. Our connection helped us to get ready to be in this very good financial position, and together we have been good stewards of this. Our annual conference has carefully navigated disaffiliation by calling for churches that left to pay multiple years of apportionments. This allowed CFA and our annual conference to fund expenditures for subsequent years almost completely through 2026, and it even allowed us to reduce apportionments to our United Methodist churches by 20%. I want to tell you, this time of careful stewardship has been fruitful, and it's allowed our annual conference to grow our financial resources. This did not happen by accident. CFA has been working on this plan for several years. The key to all of this is stable funding. CFA wants to be sure that our future mission and ministry continues in the years to come. And so it's more important than ever to use our resources in the mission field. But here's the question, and it's so important. How do we fund our mission and ministry in the future without increasing apportionments? How do we do this without either raising apportionments or cutting back drastically on our ministries? Today, the 2026 apportionment expenditure budget that's before us is a total of $4,754,018. This little footnote that I find interesting, this is actually a reduction of over 37% from the 2020 apportionment budget of $7,517,886. Page 128 has all of the budget line items for the total proposed 2026 budget. Now, actually, the 2026 budget is a modest budget increase from 2025 if you consider that the clergy housing expenditures of $143,000 that covers the district superintendents and the other clergy on the conference staff was previously funded by designated interest income, and it's just now being reflected in the conference budget. And so considering that fact, the increase is a very modest increase of 1.52% from 2025. Our annual conference today might be smaller, but let me tell you, we are still strong, and we're in a great position for effective mission and ministry. So back to the question. How do we fund our mission and our ministry in the future without increasing apportionments or slashing our programs? Our plan is a threefold plan: balance, invest, strategize. First of all, balance. CFA is presenting this plan with two parts. Number one, CFA is proposing to cut back and reduce our conference apportionments. Now, I've said this before, but it's very important. Our apportionments went down by 20% for 2024 and by another 20% for 2025. And under this plan, this is going to be a permanent reduction. So apportionment reductions of 40% will match the overall 40% reduction in the number of churches in our conference. This will be accomplished by designating the current year excess general unrestricted, undesignated reserves, and the calculation for this is presented at the bottom of page 59. Now, going hand in hand with that, this next part of our plan is to have 2% of our conference interest reserves to invest in the important mission and ministry of our annual conference. Now, here's the great news. The total of our investment pool reserves is almost $100 million. Let me tell you, so many other conferences would do anything to have reserves like that. Now, just to be clear, this 2% that we're talking about is not eating into our reserves, but it's taking interest earnings off the top. I want to point out that up until this point, we have not had to use our investment income. So the actual returns on our investments have been reinvested in the reserve ministry area designation. Page 138 of our report shows a current model without our new policy. And it's pretty easy to see if you look at that model. Without our new policy, we have a shortfall of $250,314 for the year 2026, and then a lot larger in the years to come. But if this plan is approved, the funding reserves are going to be adequate for 2026 and then for our planning for years to come. It's also important to point out that our new policy doesn't commit the annual conference to more than the upcoming budget year. If financial situations change, then CFA will consider adjustments to the plan and will present other alternatives to the annual conference in coming years. Now, this plan that we're talking about has been developed in consultation with Merrill Lynch and the United Methodist Foundation of Louisiana. These financial experts tell us that a 2% distribution is very conservative. It's actually well below the 4% distribution that's typically allowed by endowment guidelines. And I just want to emphasize this. None of these distributions will come from the principal balances of donor-restricted funds. This is very important for us to understand, especially for the funds that come under the Conference Board of Pensions and Health Benefits. It also applies to every donor-restricted fund held under the CFA accounts as well. So be assured that these distributions that we're talking about will come from two places: the current year investment income and also from the accumulated investment income on all funds, but never the principal amount. So to be very clear with it, this will not affect the funds that are designated for health and our other obligations of our retired clergy. This 2% distribution only comes from investment earnings. This is so important. CFA's plan for the future is based on sound financial management, and it's been recommended by the CFA Conference Board of Pensions and Health Benefits Investment Subcommittee and approved by both CFA and the Conference Board of Pensions and Health Benefits for recommendation to the annual conference. Here's the bottom line of it all. Our plan is to use our investment earnings and reserves to put funds back into the hands of our local churches, which is so important, and then stabilizing our ongoing mission and ministry throughout the annual conference. Now, some people have asked, why not do 3% or 4% instead of 2%? And that's a great question, but here's the reason. All of this is a major funding shift for our annual conference. It's a new way of doing things, and so we are just easing our way into the future and this new funding concept. 2%, we believe, is a good conservative amount that gets the job done. And every year, our investment subcommittee is going to review this. And finally, the third leg of the plan is to strategize, to keep on working and planning to coordinate our staffing and organization of our annual conference to do the important work of the church. So it's balance with apportionment reductions for our churches, and then invest 2% of our investment balances from our conference reserves to replace apportionments and to invest in the mission and the ministry of the annual conference, and then to strategize for the future. Balance, invest, and strategize. The plan for the future takes what has been connectional, our United Methodist work, and it builds upon the solid financial stability of our annual conference to do the work of the church and to keep on doing the work of the church, and then to equip, to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. And that, after all, is what it's all about. And so to the annual conference this afternoon, I just want to say once again that all of this is really good news for us. And it brings a lot of joy to me to share it with our clergy and to share it with our conference. Again, Bishop Williamson, just a reminder, our conference is going to wait till Friday's session in order to vote on this motion. But that concludes my report.
Again, we will wait until Friday. At our business session number 6 on Friday, where we'll do more discussion and voting. Is that correct? All right. Well, thank you so very much. But before we go, yes, give them a hand. I'd like to take a moment of personal privilege and invite Sandy. Where's she at? Sandy O'Brien up. Come over right here. I'll be right there. So I don't have a microphone on. Yeah, stand right here. Yeah. Everybody knows Sandy O'Brien? Sandy is planning to retire from her position at the conference office, and we want to say how much we love her and appreciate her fantastic work. You've seen it, you've just heard the report, and she is behind the scenes working and crunching and scrunching numbers and making sure meetings are followed through and minutes and providing emails and text and emails and where you at for the meeting and all that kind of stuff. And we just want to appreciate her and present her with the plaque on behalf of the Louisiana Annual Conference. Yes, please stand. Oh, they want a picture of us. Come back, Weldon. Yeah, we have somebody at microphone number 3.
Hi, Bishop.
Identify
Thank you.
yourself.
Reverend Allie Young, clergy, Southeast District, white, female, and I think I still qualify as a young adult.
Reverend Chad Brooks, a white female. White male, white male.
We wondered if we might have a moment of personal privilege, Bishop.
Okay.
Thank
Granted.
you.
It's granted.
I appreciate it. A couple of weeks ago, Sandy was in extended cabinet, and she mentioned this idea that she had. And for those of you that don't know Sandy well, I've had the joy of getting to know Sandy in the last 3 years in the conference office. And Sandy's heart actually lives in the local church. And she knows all of our pastors by name and by file. And I know that that sounds funny, but if you work in administration, when you know somebody's file the way that Sandy knows your file, it means that she cares about you, right? She makes sure that your insurance is covered. When you have a problem or you need maybe a little help, Sandy will go jump through hoops to make sure that it happens. When a church needs help with something, Sandy will bend over backwards to make sure that it happens, because Sandy knows that ministry happens in the local church. And it's a gift. Her administration is her ministry and her gift. And so Sandy was sitting in a meeting and she said, you know, we have these funds that have been sitting here and I have an idea. She said, what if we made a grant program to help with capital improvements for local churches? Now, Chad and I looked at each other in that meeting, and Chad started typing. And what happens when Chad starts typing is that Chad's making an idea turn into a reality. So across the room, Chad and I looked at each other, and we both texted each other the same thing at the same time. What did we tell each other?
When we figure this out, we want it to be permanently known as the Sandy O'Brien Capital Grant.
So we're still working out some of the details, but we hope to launch the Sandy O'Brien Capital Improvement Grant later this fall or early next year in honor of all of your work and your legacy.
Thank you from the bottom of my heart. And this was not a one-person effort. Great group of people at the conference office know that they're working very hard for you and on behalf of you. Please know that it's been a privilege. It's been my privilege to serve this conference and the local churches and the pastors. For all of you, thank you so much.
Let everybody shout joy.